time is approximately forever.
Cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to a brand new live stream. We are back. We are ready to go here on a Sunday night, and we have a decent amount to talk about today. So without further ado, we're going to turn on the face cam and we're going to dive into it. So 5 months before the 2024 election. Seems like we've been doing this for quite some time, doing the update streams for probably the past couple of years or so, just about this election. And finally, we are in the home stretch. We have 5 months to go, a little bit less than that, until election night. We're going to be getting the vote returns in. We're going to probably, I think we'll have a very good idea of who the winner is. Hopefully we can call a winner, before 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning in the presidential race. It's not going to be like 2020 where we don't know 1 day after, 2 days after, 3 days after, you name it. But still, Donald Trump, he is on the campaign trail. He hit the campaign trail today in Nevada without a teleprompter. He didn't need a teleprompter in Nevada. He did it for about 90 minutes or whatever. He went out there. He was campaigning in the heat, 110-degree heat, no teleprompter, just going off, off script for over an hour. And he hit on some very important points. They're gonna try to take some of his clips out of context and try to run with that as the narrative. But the number one thing and the number one takeaway from the rally in Las Vegas was the fact that Donald Trump made a huge power play to the culinary unions, because those people basically run politics in the state of Nevada. They run politics. That's what happens in the state of Nevada. You talk about the major power brokers, the culinary unions. That is key. That is crucial to victory. If you're a Republican, you tap into that, Democrats have no shot. And what did Donald Trump do? He decided to go out there and tap into that. One of the reasons why Sisolak lost compared to a lot of these other Democrats is because he was not super popular in the tourist demographic, because that's basically what runs Vegas. That's basically the number one industry there, which is the number one city by population and influence in the state of Nevada by far. Donald Trump comes out and says the workers that have been taxed on their tips, he's saying, I will stop the taxes on the tips, which this is something that I've never heard any candidate do in terms of a proposal. But he's basically saying Biden's doing the opposite, wants to raise your taxes, hiring all these IRS agents. They're armed, by the way. And on top of that, he's increasing requirements for workers to report these taxes, so making sure that they can basically get as much money from these people as possible. And then he said that Biden on student loan forgiveness, which this is a press release afterwards, it kind of aggregated what he said in the rally. He didn't say the specific talking point, but he said with Biden, it's all talk, no action. He never got student loan forgiveness done. He didn't. Most people, they hear him talk about it. He's not actually getting it done. Now, Donald Trump, on the other hand, he never really talked about this before. In 2016, he never was able to get it done because it wasn't really a policy position of his, but he still got done around 80, 90% of all his campaign promises. You never see that with anybody. Heritage Foundation did a study in his first year alone. He got like 70% of promises done. That's never happened in the history of our country, going all the way back decades upon decades upon decades, but still, he's able to get a lot done. So when Trump says something, there's a very good chance he does it. And when it comes down to something like this, this is huge. This makes a lot of sense, and this is going to win him some votes and probably be the nail in the coffin in Joe Biden's attempt to win the state of Nevada, which is not really much of an attempt because Biden is playing defense. He knows he can't probably win Nevada. What is he trying to do? He's trying to go all out on Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and he needs to win all four of those states to win. Trump only needs to win one of those four states, really depending on what state he wins, of course, but still, I mean, the fact that Biden has to run the table, that is crucial. Donald Trump just needs to, if he wins two of those states, regardless of which states they are, he wins the presidential election. He boxes Biden out of term number 2. And that's kind of what this comes down to. Nevada, Georgia, those are the states Trump might focus on in the here and now more so, and probably drop them later on because he'll shore them up into his column. That's not to say he won't go back in September, maybe once in October, but still, that's just to make sure people are voting when early voting starts, which they're now pushing. They were not doing this before, not in 2020, not in 2022. So now you have more of an effort to play to win and play for keeps. And that's what Donald Trump is doing in Nevada, playing for keeps, but also playing to win, talking about these local issues that actually matter to people on the ground, because you would not usually see any Republican trying to reach out to these people, but Donald Trump is reaching out to these people and likely is going to do so with a great deal of success. If these people are kind of on the fence or undecided or you name it, Trump is starting to really peel off some union support, but that is no thanks to the union bosses, which is arguably even more impressive that he's still peeling off the support. But the union bosses are corrupt people. They are deranged partisans. They want mass immigration to pour in. They like illegal immigration. They don't care about their workers. They don't care about the workers' wages. Many unions, some unions will. I mean, you're seeing this more with the Teamsters, where they're kind of starting to slowly turn a little bit more to the Republicans in terms of their leadership, which is good. But a lot of these unions, the culinary unions, they're saying, well, they don't even know how to respond to it, because they basically say for decades, they have fought for whatever Trump said, and relief is needed. So they basically agree with Trump's stance on it, but then they stop short of that. They say Nevada workers are smart enough to know the difference between real solutions and wild campaign promises, which again, how is this all that wild if you believe it's a real solution? If Joe Biden said the same thing, they would be saying, wow, Biden is a worker's hero. He's coming to our relief. But because it's Donald Trump, no, he's evil. They say he's a convicted felon. Like, who gives a shit? Who cares if he's a convicted felon? A lot of these workers working for the union probably are also convicted felons. They were convicted probably on something that was a legitimate crime, but still Donald Trump, who is not convicted on a legitimate crime, that's a problem. That's the evil Blumph. He has to be taken down. 33% of black men in this country, they're convicted felons, but so long as Trump, they basically have to stretch the law and elect somebody who campaigns solely on, we're going to get Trump, we're going to get Trump, we're going to get Trump. They finally get Trump because they have a jury pool that hates Trump's guts and a judge that hates Trump's guts. Apparently, that's fine. That's, the rule of law is important there, even though it's not the rule of law. But, if it's all these other people, no, you can't say that whatsoever. You can't even call them felons. These are they say justice challenged people, or they say justice impacted individuals. But because it's Donald Trump, no, he's the worst guy ever. He's the worst guy in the world. That's how they're trying to operate. They're trying to play the game for power, but is it going to land? Is it going to work? Personally, I think if there's one state having a conviction helps him, it's the state of Nevada, saying, oh, well, he's been convicted for something, therefore whatever he says doesn't matter or make sense. That's just smug behavior. They're clearly just flopping around all over the place. If he was not convicted, they would just say, campaign promises from an insurrectionist, or they'll use some other buzzword. This is just like insert buzzwords. It's plug and play for them in their statements because they have nothing legitimate to attack Donald Trump on. And they know that Trump is putting a position forward that's a winning position. They don't even know how to hit him. So they're going from there. But either way, Nevada, Trump's up by around 5 points. That's usually a big enough lead to overcome any sort of polling error, any sort of shenanigans. I mean, the polls matched Trump's totals in Nevada in 2020, although there weren't a lot of polls in the aggregate. There's going to be more now because it's a state that people see as a swing state more so than before, and maybe they won't even see it as a swing state as we get closer to the election, just because Donald Trump is somebody who is going to win the state, or they think he's going to win the state by a lot more than they initially anticipated. If he's up in the polling aggregate by like 6 or 7 points, well, that's absolutely huge. It absolutely is. But Nevada, it's everywhere. It's Nevada, it's Virginia, Florida. This poll was supposed to be the bad one for Trump. He's still winning it by more than he won it by in 2020, and that's an outlier poll. They say, well, why are you talking about some polls but not the other polls? I'm talking about all the polls, first of all, but one of those polls is an outlier. The other polls are in line with other polls in the aggregate. I think Florida, you could throw it in the system, throw it in the aggregate, fine. He's up by 8. That poll is underestimating him compared to other polls in the state of Florida. But you want to look at a state like Arizona, that poll's in line with the state average. You look at even Virginia, which is tied. There's other polls that have it tied, but I think this is impressive because Trump is not just tied at like 42 or 40 or 43. He's tied at 48. He got 44% of the vote on the nose in 2020 in the state. So you're seeing a massive improvement already. He's in a very good position in the state of Virginia. All these states, it's going to likely come down, in my opinion, to the Rust Belt. But the fact that Biden just has to spend time and resources defending some of these other states, it's like, this is brutal. This is absolutely brutal. This is not where you want to be, less than 5 months before the election. And I think the polls are going to stay about the same in the here and now. I really do. I think the polls probably stay the same. They might, bounce around a little bit. Oh, Trump is tied in the popular vote, or maybe he'll be up by more than 1. I expect roughly a Trump +1 lead or so over the next month. That's what we've seen, and that's what we probably will continue to see. If you look at the head-to-head aggregate, right now Donald Trump leads by 0.8%, but still, you look at the polls that are likely going to come into the aggregate, you are probably going to see polls drop from Harvard Harris. You might see a CNN that probably still has Trump up, but by less than the previous poll, because there's no way he was up by 6 to 9 nationally. But still, all these polls. The Reuters poll is garbage. Ipsos doesn't know how to poll. ABC also basically getting rid of their good pollster, which was tied to the Washington Post, for the Ipsos poll, which is an awful, online conducted survey that just has usually been off the mark. That's like one of Biden's best polls. It's a low quality pollster. But Trump and CBS today, he's up by 1. That's a CBS poll post-conviction. They weren't releasing the top lines for quite some time, ironically enough, but they finally did, and Donald Trump leads by 1. That's absolutely huge. They do say Biden's up by 1 in quote-unquote the battleground section, but they don't wait for that. So it's really hard to really deduce anything from it. If Trump is leading nationwide, he's doing better than nationwide in the battleground, just based off of the fact that the battleground states are more Trump-friendly than the national popular vote. So either way, Trump leads the polling aggregate by roughly 1%, and the debate is like the next big change of momentum. What's going to happen in the debate? We'll have to wait and see, and that's really going to be something that's determining. But let's say Trump doesn't lose ground, then you get the RNC bump. Then he's going to have a lot of momentum, and we'll see if that's neutralized by the DNC. We'll see what happens after that, and then we're in full gear. Then we're in September. Then early ballots start to go out in North Carolina and Pennsylvania, a lot of these other states, and make sure people vote early. People need to vote early, and Trump is now pushing the early vote because you know that in order to win, you're going to have to get people voting as early as they possibly can. We've been, kind of dropping the ball with this. I don't think we really realized it until 2022, why it's important to get out and vote. Bank your votes, because you don't know what could happen. You get sick. You're not going to maybe show up to the polls on election day. You happen to be out of town. You don't know what's going to happen. Anything can happen. Things can come up. People need to vote, and then they need to make sure that they can waste or not waste, but use and utilize the remaining time before election day to get other people to the polling place, get other people to vote. That definitely is going to run up the score, and I'm sure we're still going to have an edge on election day as well, and that's going to possibly be what boosts Donald Trump over the finish line. So I tell people to vote early, vote often. That's what the left does. It's usually allowed them to be more high propensity, usually allowed them to take advantage of the election system. We've ceded that ground to them. I think it's time we start to kind of take some of that ground back and take it back for us. Who knows what's going to happen election day, Arizona, the long lines, systems potentially failing. You don't want that to happen. You want to bank your votes as early as possible. So there's less people, there's less room for shenanigans, there's less room for stuff like that to occur. But this is just a recurring theme that we see all around. Donald Trump is hitting on these issues, and Biden's not winning on these issues. He's losing ground on a lot of them, including immigration, which we just saw what happened in Europe today, where the more populist right parties are starting to take control of a good portion of Europe and the EU Parliament, and potentially taking control of France pretty soon if Macron is really dumb enough to call that snap election that has been rumored lately. But still, this is also huge in America because a majority of Americans, this was never the case. Even though Trump would get a leg up on the issue because it wasn't a third rail issue, when they pulled mass deportations, most people opposed of them back in 2016. And that was still a winning issue for Trump, but now it's the opposite. 62% favor a mass deportation system. And Biden thinks he can run on this being dangerous and evil, but the American people support it. So the DNC is scratching their heads about this too. But on top of it, look at this even further, and you can see that even by race, 53% of Hispanics believe that a mass deportation force is warranted and justifiable in this country. That's 53%. That's a majority. We were told these people would shy away from the Republican Party unless we gave amnesty, but apparently that's not what it shows, and close to a majority of black voters as well. Many of these are Democrats for sure, but still 47% in support of this is absolutely huge for a very, very Democrat-leaning, and 38% of Democrats polled as well. So 38% of Democrats, 60% of independents, and 88% of Republicans want these people deported, and Biden's not going to do it because the far left would turn on him if he does that. But, he's trying to like fence sit, claim he's the real person that's strong on border security when he's not. Everybody with a brain knows that he's not. But you look at this and it's like, yeah, independents, pretty much all Republicans, and even a good chunk of Democrats are siding with Donald Trump and his position that's supposedly the most controversial position you could have on the issue of immigration. This is just a rising tide we see of like this nationalistic tendencies, these populist tendencies, and you're seeing it across the board. You're seeing it in Europe. It's possible, some of these things they don't carry over always, but maybe you will see something start to kind of carry over a little bit here, and you will see that Donald Trump can ride this issue to victory, even among Hispanic voters in these border states, Arizona, Nevada. Every state basically is a border state. The border crisis is impacting the Rust Belt, Michigan in particular, Pennsylvania in particular, these urban areas. Part of the reason why one could say young black men are turning to Trump also, you could say, is because of the immigration issue. This is a major issue in urban centers, urban areas, and Donald Trump is the one talking about it. Nobody else is talking about it. Biden is fence-sitting on it. These are people, you have an invasion, basically. They're giving these people free housing in, as Trump said in the Nevada rally, luxury hotels are having to house these people in New York City. And this is a major problem, and people don't want it, especially in Las Vegas, where you have the tourist industry. They're trying to use hotels for this kind of stuff. It's unacceptable. So all in all, we need to make sure that this is also a message that gets completely hammered home between now and Election Day, because it is such a winning issue. You have the economy. You have, Biden's tax plan. You have foreign policy, the stability versus the brink of World War III. You have, the crime policy worldview. There's so many different ways of looking at this election, but every way you basically look at it, it's Donald Trump having the upper hand, and that's likely why he's doing so well. Nobody cares if you want to call him a convicted felon. They don't believe he's guilty, so why would it really matter is kind of the real question. Most people view this to be political theater. Oh, they're going to hit him with a label. So what's up next? Everything's bounced off. It's like whack-a-mole. You try to, hit him on something. He just pops up stronger than ever. Oh, there's another $400 million for Trump. I think the other day he got another 30-some million too. We don't even know Biden's campaign fundraising numbers. Why is he not releasing them? Probably because they just can't compete. He only got 52 million in the month of April. The month of May last year, or last cycle, I should say, 2020, he got 80 million. I don't even believe he hit 80 million, or he would have announced it. So he probably did very poorly. Democrats are coping. They're running around like a chicken with their head cut off. And is it possible they're the ones that are going to be strapped for cash compared to Trump, even though it was looking to be the opposite in a lot of people's eyes? Yeah, and while spending isn't everything, and cash definitely, Hillary Clinton, she outspent Trump significantly and won, but still, it does kind of show that people don't want to throw money at something they believe to be a sinking ship. And now you have Democrat strategists who are saying Biden should be maybe looked at being replaced, and then they're trying to like revamp Kamala's image because they know that the only person they could realistically replace Biden with is Kamala Harris. So they're like sending her on this book tour or whatever across the country. She's getting heckled at by the crazy Hamas people too. It's pretty funny. But they're not going to be able to make her likable. She's honestly, according to polling, less likable than Hillary Clinton. And also, she is tied deeply to this unpopular administration. So if she's the nominee, they trot her out there. Maybe they use the first debate as like a testing ground for Biden. That's why it's so early. It's before the convention. Yeah, maybe if they do replace him, like I said, it's going to be with Kamala Harris. And maybe they are looking into this because they've thrown everything at Trump. What's up next? Jail time. I don't think that they're necessarily going to be that dumb, because I really feel as if it would backfire. They said a conviction wouldn't backfire, but it is. Would jail time really be something they want to gamble with? Biden trying to put his political opponent in jail right before the RNC, right before the election? It's unlikely they'll be able to. I mean, the betting markets are showing what they're showing for a reason, and they were showing him to be convicted too. So like I said, it's definitely a mixed bag. But nevertheless, we are going to get to Super Chats. We are about 25 minutes into this stream. So if you guys want to send Super Chats, feel free. We got 1,200 people. Make sure you guys like the stream. Can we get to 500 likes? Make sure you guys like it down below, and make sure you guys subscribe as well to the channel. But we have a few Super Chats we do need to get to. And I'll change the, there we go. Okay, and we will get to all of them right now. We got quite a few. But anyways, Johnny Heartdog, who usually leads off the show with the pre-show Super Chats for $20, says, hello, this will be my last string of Super Chats for a while, because after this week I will be getting ready to go to Alaska. So please have your viewers who believe in prayer pray that all goes well up there. I believe that we'll probably have some people that will be praying for you, and it will be my last stream for about a week. For the record, I will not be streaming on Tuesday. I'll be busy. I will not be streaming on next Sunday. Maybe the following Tuesday we will stream, but I will be busy. I won't be able to stream, so just a heads up for people. Let's see. Also, I may be able to slip one in every now and then if I have time, but I'd like to ask you 2 questions. First question is, what are your top 2 concerns about the election? Johnny Hartog also says the second question is, what are you most confident about? What other 2 things that bring you the most confidence about the coming election? So that's kind of basically the question that I've been asking people lately, except you're doubling up the stakes of this. In terms of the top 2 concerns, I think one is turnout. You know, definitely, while things look very good, Biden is a slight polling error away from winning the election through the Rust Belt states, and it definitely comes down to turnout. Is Trump going to have his base energized and actually ready to vote? I think you'd like to think so, but it does feel like, as of right now, maybe not a lot of people are paying attention. So who really knows what's going to happen? And there's so much you don't know. I think another concern that I have is what's going to happen down the stretch in general, because you have 5 months. What else are they going to try to, employ their strategies? It seems like they've kind of cannibalized their entire arsenal against Trump, but what else do they possibly have? But also, will it possibly even stick at this point? I don't know. So just, Trump and his campaign, they need to make sure they avoid any self-inflicted wounds, talk about things that actually win voters, not things that might lose voters, and go from there. So I'm in terms of my 2 points of confidence, I am actually confident about, some people will use this as a point of concern. I am confident about the election integrity operation compared to 2020. It's definitely more in place. But in terms of the electoral things, I think is Biden's approval rating is just so bad. And because he's hated, and because these elections are usually referendums on, do you like this person's term or not, and do you want change? I feel like a lot of people right now are feeling the vibe of wanting change, and that's why Donald Trump is going to be in a very, very good position. People aren't buying the economic gaslighting. They're upset at what's happening at the border. The numbers that we just went over, they kind of show that. So all in all, we need to make sure that we get out to vote regardless, but I think the point of confidence mainly just stems from, usually you don't see a polling error that big, but Trump's in a really good position right now, but also Biden doesn't really have the leg up on Trump on any issue. He has to lie his ass off. He has to act desperate. That's also another point of confidence. Dean Cream Between says, best case, Trump wins all swings plus Minnesota and Virginia. I mean, I think in the best case, you'd have to throw in Maine. Maine is very swingy. New Hampshire might even be a contender. But Virginia, the fact it's in play, the fact we're even talking about Virginia, Democrats in 2020 were talking about South Carolina. Now we're talking about Virginia. Now hopefully we win Virginia, or hopefully we don't lose Virginia by 11 points the way Democrats lost South Carolina. But the point really just stays the same. The point stays the same. Virginia is a state that Donald Trump is making a play for, and Biden is actually spending money and energy defending it. And it might vote for Biden by 7 or 8, but still, the fact that he's having to waste resources on it is good. I don't think it's going to be 7 to 8. I think it's going to be close to like 5, maybe even lower. It's going to look more like 2016 Virginia than 2020 Virginia. Mike Oxard says, no tax on tips will appeal to the young vote. Absolutely. I mean, how many people work in the service industry and have to pay taxes on tips? Like, we talk about the working class or whatever. That's like the working class that Democrats have usually won. But now Donald Trump is kind of tapping into that as well. That's kind of, I mean, it's kind of it's something to think about. And young voters are not really fond of Biden and the way things are going. So it's an all-around W of a take to have. Apex Caliber says more likely to flip Virginia, Minnesota, New Mexico, or New York. Probably Minnesota. Just because of the third-party vote share, I'd say that they probably would be the most likely of those four to flip. New York is not going to flip. I don't really see a pathway for Trump. If you double up the shifts we saw in 2022 in the New York metro, it's not enough. It's still not enough to even get him within like 6. So keep that in mind. He'd have to like win New York City outright to win New York, and I think he's going to do much better. I don't think he's going to win New York or New Jersey. But the fact is that those states are going to be closer than they were in 2020, and I think that that's not even up for debate at this point. So let's see. We have more super chats here. The Blue Spy says, thank you for the regular elector White Pills rep. Who's the better candidate for Virginia 7th, in your opinion, Derek Anderson or Cameron Hamilton? I don't know either of those people, to be honest. I'd have to do my research and get back to you on that one. But I think it's the week after next is when they're doing their primaries. Nobody says turn 20 today voting for Trump for the first time. Well, we're glad to have you. Dustin Carner says, how do you react if Republicans win Virginia by 5, or Georgia by 5, Virginia by 0.1, and Texas by 8? Well, I think that'd be huge. That'd mean they win. Because if they win Georgia and Virginia, then all they need to do is win, I think, Nevada or North Carolina. If you do the math, it's like, yeah, you give them Georgia, that's 251, Virginia's 264. You're probably going to have Nevada, that would be 270. That's game over. So there's that. Security TV says, just seen news headlines. Trump turns on crowd in disastrous Vegas rally. Fake news so full of shit. Does anyone really believe it? I don't know. Like, he basically says that the media is saying that he is like putting people's lives at risks, and he's like, I don't care about these people, just want their votes, whatever. It's really bad out of context. If I was him, I wouldn't say something like that, for the record, just because I know they take it out of context. And right after Trump said, yeah, they'll take that one out of context, and they did take that one out of context. So it's dishonesty. You think Trump is dumb enough to like say that he doesn't care about people right in front of them, but at the same time, they also think that he's like smart enough to be some evil dictator who's gonna, take power and like, I don't know, just like try to govern for the rest of his life, even though he's like, 78, 79 years old. He's about to be 78, but he would be 82 by the time he left office. These are just not smart people that we're dealing with here. So what can I say? Dean Crane Between says, bold prediction, Biden wins California by less than 15. I wouldn't go that far. I could see Trump get like 38. Maybe Biden could get like 59. He could be held below 60. I don't believe that Biden's going to win California by less than 15. That would mean that he's really struggling, and that'd mean Trump probably at that point takes the popular vote by a couple points. But you never know. I just don't think the math is quite there. These big states will get closer, but they're not really like primed to be flipped. Like, the only state that I think is really primed to be flipped is Nevada. That at least Trump didn't win either time is what I'm saying. Dollar for Dollar says, thoughts on Calvinism and predestination. Well, I'm not a Calvinist, so it's technically not really compatible with the Orthodox or even like, Eastern Catholic denominations. So it's not really something that I personally adhere to. Cool Blue 71 for 10 says, pickups of all swing state re-elects Donald Trump with 31 states, Maine second, and 312 electoral votes. The next tier status will be Minnesota, New Hampshire, Maine, and New Mexico. We need more polls. That's true. We do need more polls there. If Virginia is in play, look at Colorado. I don't think Colorado's worth looking at, mainly because of the fact that Colorado is moving off a cliff. You know, it's a state that's gotten a lot of liberals there. It may even move left from 2020. That's how low confidence I have in the state of Colorado. So, Dollar for Dollar says thoughts on non-denominational churches. It really just depends. I mean, personally, I'm not a non-denominational. A lot of people are. They probably have a different view on it than I do. But, I mean, it depends. They tend to be more free-for-all, leads to different people, in my opinion, interpreting the Bible in a different way. And if you don't have a consensus, I don't think that that's really like a valid way of, at least personally, if there's no consensus, I just feel like the faith in general gets weakened. And some people probably disagree with me on that, and that's okay. But John Cordisco's Corner says a Trump mistrial helps the Dems. Your thoughts? I don't know if it helps the Dems. They wouldn't be able to, but it wouldn't help Trump necessarily either, because what it would do is basically the whole martyr thing goes out the window, and it's like, oh, it's a mistrial, and they're still going to say, oh, well, he still has all these indictments. It's not going to change anybody's votes either way is what I'm saying. It's not going to. Maybe he'll raise more money just because anything good for Trump helps him, but also anything bad for Trump also somehow helps him because Trump has broken the laws of politics, and anything big revolving Trump is good for Trump. No press is bad press. It's true. I mean, that's the saying, and it's holding up. The Sandwich Man says LTE is LTE, but he released a vid saying there's a 17-point shift towards Biden. How much of this is true and how much of it is total BS? Well, I haven't seen the video, but I can already deduce what he's talking about. So the CBS poll, the previous poll was done months ago, and it showed Trump up among independents by 15 points. And now it shows Biden up by 2. But the last poll oversampled right-wing independents and undersampled Republicans. This poll oversamples Republicans and then undersamples left or right-wing independents to compensate for it. So it doesn't matter a whole lot. People that are like these crosstab hawks usually are not analyzing polls properly. And again, the guy that you mentioned, he is paid by Biden's campaign to do TikToks for them. That's not a joke. You can look it up. And he works in the White House. So that explains the bias, but apparently with, me, it's like a bad thing according to a lot of people, that whatever I say just goes out the window because I have bias, even though I wear it on my sleeve. But these other people who literally claim to be unbiased, work for Biden, presumably get paid for doing things for Biden, they're fine, even though every single video is doomed for Trump, even though they have to stretch the truth to get it. And it's like, when you look at my videos, it's like, I'm not even going to go out of my way to do this. It's like, you see a video title, it's like, Biden or VP shortlist for Trump is bad for Trump. And it's like, these are the same people he's always been considering. How's this bad for Trump? I'm not going to make a video saying it's good for Trump because I don't think the VP is as consequential as some people make it out to be. But still, what can I say? M says, hopefully Trump carries the GOP to trifecta in Nevada. I agree. Might be a tall task, though. I think they have close to like a super majority, or for the Democrats, that is. LinRx52 for 10 says, feel like we should stress 3 to 4 months till the elections. Early vote for Illinois is June 26th. Minnesota, South Dakota, and Virginia are on September 20th. That is true. Odin Fool says, who is they? I don't know who they, though, is. But thanks for the super chat. Definitely not Obama. Says, thoughts on Dems pushing Chuck Schumer for president? I've never seen any Democrat do that. It doesn't make any sense to me. Cool Blue 71 says, follow up to my previous comment, Virginia and Colorado vote alike. Their margins have been no more than 3.53 in spread since 1996. Well, that's probably about to change regardless of what happens. The states are different now. I mean, you look at 2020 in Virginia and you compare that to 2020 in Colorado, very different than the, dead heat in terms of the marginal difference we saw in 2016. Colorado's changed a lot, just like Florida's changed a lot, no longer a swing state. Ohio and Iowa have changed a lot. They're no longer swing states, so what can I say? Walk Talk for 21 for 20 says, to be honest, Red Eagle, I say Connecticut will be within 10 or 5 points. The governor here is not fond of Biden, as back in 2006 against Lieberman, Biden called Lamont an al-Qaeda asset, and Lamont is moving right on the issues. Haven't heard about that about Lamont, but I will say that Connecticut, I mean, it's possible that the margins narrow. I don't know about within 10, but they definitely will narrow quite a bit in my view. Joshua Hickman says, hey, Rep, big fan. Do you think Trump could win Virginia this cycle? Either way, it will be very close. I'd love to know your thoughts. I think that he could get it within a few points. I don't know about winning it, but I'd like to see more polls. Because if the polls are showing what they show now in October, that's a different ball game. But it's still early. Trump's only polling in the aggregate at, 43% or so. That's not bad because Biden's not polling much higher. But, we still have a long way to go here. I'm more excited about, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, Georgia, because Trump's polling around 49% in those states. If he gets that margin even on election day, he probably wins. Dustin Carner says 2026 Burt Jones for governor and Kemp for Senate. This is probably going to be the most realistic course of action for sure. I think that Kemp is probably one of the only people that win that Senate seat, and I think Burt Jones would be a massive upgrade over Kemp. You'd also knock off one of the top Democrat 2028 contenders before they'd even be able to run, which also would be some nice bragging rights to have. So I don't know. I think that Kemp and Trump probably are going to make up. They already kind of have. Trump wins Georgia. Trump's probably going to, endorse him. Kemp is kind of a rhino, but who else is going to win that Senate seat against the incumbent in a Trump midterm if Trump is president? I can't think of another person possible. We already did the Sandwich Man. I think that might be a duplicate, unless I just somehow read it out of order. Michigan Nationalist is atheist for Trump, conservative libertarian. Well, not an atheist here, but I'm glad you support Trump at least. I'll say that. Carter W says, what are the signs you will look for on election night? Depends on the state. I think early on we're going to see Florida and Texas come in and they're going to be really ruby red. And then it's going to be oh, this is huge. But it's hold our horses. We have a lot of states to cover. We got Georgia. I'm just saying, look at the counties that are mostly in, probably at around 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in some of these states like Georgia. Is Trump actually, in a good position to win the state? In North Carolina as well. If he's in a good position in those states, it means we got a real shot at victory. And in terms of the victory itself, we probably have to wait quite a bit for some of Michigan, Wisconsin to come in, Pennsylvania, but also the early vote in Arizona. We're going to have to watch the margins there as well. I don't even know how to pronounce this name, but MP says, hi, Rep, greetings from the People's Republic of Mexico. I'm wondering, is there a way to support the MAGA movement as a foreigner? Well, I don't believe you could donate to Donald Trump because you can't do that if you're not an American citizen. But, if you have family members in America, you can convince them. There's plenty of ways to go about this for sure. Bomani Igloo says, you think if the Governor Hobbs investigation continues through November in Arizona, it'll hurt Democrats? It could. It's not a good look, but again, this is mainly a referendum on Biden. If there's a Republican that's running for office in a state that's lower down in the ballot who's not popular, that usually doesn't sink the presidential candidate at the top of the ticket because reverse coattails just are not a thing. And this also probably wouldn't play much of a role. I think referendums or amendments, if anything, can have that sway because they definitely will energize people. But it's not likely going to be there's going to be a whole lot of them, especially now that the abortion thing is somewhat settled in Arizona, which was kind of an issue for Trump. But he went up in the polls afterwards, so what can I say? LenarX52 says mistrial could mean immediate retrial and Trump hung up in court for another 6 weeks. Yeah, and that's the thing. That Facebook message was apparently a troll. But why is Merchant bringing it up knowing it's an obvious troll? It's clearly because maybe they want to find a way to have a mistrial, have him back there for 6 weeks. Maybe he even gets acquitted on the second try, but they want to make sure that he's not able to campaign or whatsoever. They want to hold him back. It might backfire like it did the first time, but still, it's just not a good look overall. Bomani Igloo says, would a Rust Belt VP be the best pick? Maybe Vance? I don't know. Vance is an interesting pick. I don't know who the VP is going to be. I think it's up to Trump to make that decision, and regardless of who it is, I'm going to be supporting the ticket, and I encourage other people to also support the ticket, because that's what it comes down to. Top Gear Fan 2848 says, here's my current prediction. Roughly Pennsylvania, Michigan, Nevada will be R+1. Arizona, Wisconsin, R+2. Georgia, R+3. Minnesota, D+2. Virginia, Maine, and will be D+3. North Carolina, R+6. New Hampshire, D+6. Florida, R+9. Texas, R+10. New York, D+16. New Jersey, D+12. It's possible. I'll take that. I would take that in a heartbeat. I think everybody in chat would. DH, his thoughts on Democrats running on Eat the Rich. I haven't seen them do that lately, but let them try. Let them try. If that's what they want to run on, they want to embrace the full, the whole Bernie Sanders platform that was so unpopular, then let them do it. It's not a winning message. Americans don't hate rich people. That's not how it's really been. We want opportunities. We want people to have the ability to become rich, not the fact that having money itself is evil, because that's clearly not the case. Dustin Carner says Alaska and Montana margins. I think Alaska probably is going to be like R+13, R+14. I think Montana is going to be more like R+20-ish, maybe a little bit lower than that, but still. Also, is Scott the likely VP pick now? I would say, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Trump's head. I can't see it being Tim Scott, but we'll see. He wants it the most, and I think that that's kind of going to be something that turns Trump off of that, in my opinion. Let's see. DH says, do we know if we're going to get the election results on election night this year? Are we going to have to wait a few days? Depends on the state, but I think we're going to have much more of them sooner than later, unlike 2020. Probably even more fast than we saw in 2022 as well. Walkatalk 21 says he supports sending the National Guard to the border, killed a ton of left-wing bills, and state Democrats are trying to get rid of him because he is right-wing on economics. You're referring to Lamont. That's interesting because I haven't heard much about him, but he clearly has, recovered his popularity because he almost lost in 2018 of all years, beat the same guy in 2022 handily, even though he didn't really run the best campaign. So Secession Now says Trump will never win Nevada. Dems have it on lock. They give gift cards for mail-in ballots. Latinos and Native Americans love it. It doesn't matter. They are not going to be able to withstand the dam breaking, the Hoover Dam breaking, that is, for quite some time. Even if you probably have some people, they probably do give them find some roundabout way to get people voting. Yeah, they do that, but is it going to be enough at this point? Because both of those demographics move vastly to the right. Even in 2020, they move to the right. Maybe they'll take the gifts. Doesn't mean they're necessarily going to still be voting for them. So we'll see. Let's see. I think that's it. I think that's it for Super Chats for now. So we'll go on until the hour mark, but make sure you guys like the stream down below. We're almost to 500. Make sure you guys like the stream. I'll look in regular chat as well, but we are going to be, we'll take Super Chats for, first. We'll take them for priority, so we'll see. But we have 1,200 people in chat. Make sure you guys like the stream down below. Make sure you guys subscribe if you haven't yet subscribed. Again, I won't be streaming for about a week, a little bit more than that, so just saying. Just a heads up for people. But we will be back. We'll be back. We'll still keep the content coming, kind of, for the next week or so. And then the following week, it's going to be just full content blitz. We're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about. Let's see. New Mexico. No, I don't think there's any New Mexico polls. I would have been the first to know unless something just got released, but we don't really seem to have any. We don't seem to have any right now. But yeah, people need to get out and vote. That's the thing. We need people to make sure they vote. Because I did the poll a couple streams ago, and it showed that a lot of people that support Trump didn't even show up to the polls, even if they were old enough. It's like, you can't do that. You can't do that. You have to make sure you vote. That's why, like, the early voting thing, I'm not against it, so long as we can use it to our advantage. So that's kind of it. Mike Oxard says, so are they doing mail-in ballots as big as 2020? They are going to have the option for them, but they probably won't be as frequent as they were. Turnout's not going to be as high regardless, most likely. 2022 wasn't even as high as 2018 despite the new system. Kind of hurt Trump in a way, but I feel like higher turnout than that would help him, even if it is lower than 2020. Dustin Carner says, decision desk is Montana's Senate lean Republican. Nevada, Ohio, and Wisconsin are their toss-ups. Interesting. Well, I mean, I think Montana is going to be Republican. I think Ohio will as well at the end of the day. The others, I think Trump or the Republicans might win some of them. Maybe Trump can carry some of these people, but probably not going to win all of those seats, to be honest. Real Text and Politics with a member chat says, how are you feeling about Mark Robinson's chances right now? He's underperforming Trump in the polls by quite a bit, so that's concerning. Well, that's to be expected. I mean, you are running for governor of a state that splits their tickets. Usually they vote Republican at the presidential level. Down ballot, they'll vote Democrat. Now, we saw a bigger split in the polls in 2020 with the race between Dan Forrest and Roy Cooper. And some of those polls, I mean, you saw a ridiculous polling. I mean, Roy Cooper led the final average by 11, but Donald Trump got Dan Forrest to 47%. So the fact that Mark Robinson right now is tied and he's only underrunning Trump by, 4 to 5, that's a pretty good sign in my opinion. That's a pretty good sign. Honestly, the more Stein tries to tie himself to Biden, it's not going to help Biden. It's going to hurt Stein. So let him try. Let them do their dirty tricks. We'll see what happens, but I think Robinson's going to, if anybody can come back from all the stuff they're going to throw at him besides Donald Trump, it's Mark Robinson, just because of his lovable personality, his backstory that's just kind of impressive, how he grew up and got to be where he is right now. So we'll see if that's able to resonate with North Carolinians and get him across the finish line. We'll see. Let's see. Trump could win Nassau County. He could win Nassau County. I think he probably does by a little tiny bit, not by much. I don't think he does. I mean, I think that New York is going to be like a 12, 13-point Biden win. But that's huge. Like, that is a big shift. That's what people don't understand. If the polls right now stay the same until Election Day, maybe you are going to see the repeat of the governorship. But, it is true. New York is New York. But I'd like to believe in likely New York at the presidential level, but we'll see. I know that the Democrats have really dropped the ball there. DH is Mike Rogers in Michigan good? He's good enough for Michigan. I don't think he's ideal, but the other candidates in the primary both voted to impeach Trump. So, it's not like his opponents are really all that much better. And Amash supports open borders. So that's kind of a problem. I think that Rogers is fine. I think he could win. I don't think he's great. I think he's like kind of an establishment Republican, but the other people that are like in the running are not good either. So we'll see. Yeah, Rogers can win. He can win. Like, Slotkin is mediocre. She probably could outrun Biden. You might see some ticket splitting. Not quite a bit, though. Parks and Places for 5 says a report claiming that there are 40 to 50 million illegals here and the number is suppressed. These people need to go home. What's the chance that actually happens? The chance that they go home? Well, I think that it's going to be difficult to get all these people out of the country. It is true that there are a lot of people, maybe not 40 to 50 million, because that means that over 10% of the population is illegal. I don't know if that's accurate, but I will say that it is probably around 20 to 30, and it's gone up substantially during this administration. So I think that how do we get them out? Well, you have to deport them, the ones you can, but also cut off their benefits too. A lot of them will indeed self-deport. That's part of it. But yeah, we're going to have to actually enforce the law. It's that easy. Hire a bunch of people, it creates more jobs, and then enforce the law. Mike Oxart says, which comes first, World War III or Election Day? Probably Election Day, but you never know. In this day and age, you never know. But we are less than 5 months. I mean, 5 months ago, what was different? 5 months ago was January. Like, Trump was leading the polls by pretty much the same amount. Random guy says, who should Trump's VP be? That's his decision to make. I could answer that question, but like I said, that's his decision to make. He's going to have to weigh the options, and I trust his judgment. There's nothing else that I could do at this point to say this VP or that VP, because he's narrowing the margins down in terms of who he's selecting. You're down to 7 people. You're down to Doug Burgum, Ben Carson, Byron Donalds, Marco Rubio, J.D. Vance, Tim Scott, and Elise Stefanik. It's going to be probably one of those 7, unless this is just some giant head fake, and then we'll see who he picks if it is a giant head fake, because I wouldn't put it past Trump to do something like that, but we'll see. Dustin Carner says, which seats flip? Republican in the House, Alaska, Maine 2nd, Washington's 3rd, South Texas. I think that some of those could flip. I think that all 4 of them are probably not the most flippable. Maybe some of the ones in Michigan and Pennsylvania are more likely. But Alaska, yeah, Peltola's a little overrated. Trump on the ballot in Maine 2nd. Maybe you could see Golden lose. He's kind of moved left a little bit. Washington's 3rd. Maybe this time it does flip. And then South Texas, I mean, those seats kind of, I mean, you have more like legacy type of Democrats there and people that vote down ballot Dem even if they vote for Trump. So maybe you flip a seat or 2. Maybe Flores wins this time, but I don't know. It just depends on the turnout and what you see down there. All right, we're going to go for another about 4 minutes. So will I do a live stream on election night, November 5th? Absolutely. We absolutely will, without question. We will be here. We will do the best we can to be here. We will do a live stream November 5th, and that's going to be huge. That is make or break for America. And while there is a lot to be concerned about, you got to make sure that we can move those concerns and stay motivated. I don't want people being complacent. I want them thinking this is 50-50. Otherwise, we're not going to get off our ass and do our job. So, make sure that we can do this. Unless Rep is a sore, I will, even if I have a sore throat, I will be streaming the election. There is no way I'm not streaming. I'd have to lose my voice entirely. That's probably not going to happen. Fingers crossed. We'll see. Someone said, is Trump 300 pounds? I'm pretty sure he's like 215 pounds. He's lost a lot of weight, too, since he left office. I mean, he has slimmed down quite a bit. No, it is make or break. It is indeed make or break. If we can't get this right, there's no shot, because you know what's going to happen. You're going to have possible amnesty. You're going to have probably another disappointing midterm for one reason or another. They're going to try to purge Trump out of the party again. I mean, at that point, who's even going to run in 2028? For the people that say, oh, it'll be Vivek, it's like, is there any real, enough evidence that showcases that he'll even have the appeal to win a primary? He's popular online. So is Ron Paul. I feel like he's more Ron Paul than Donald Trump in that sense. So, it depends on who runs for sure. But I don't want to talk about 28. I'm just saying that there's no future without this election. That's why it's so important. Parks and Places says, is Trump not far right enough to save the U.S.? Well, I mean, it depends how you define that. I don't think Trump is necessarily going to save it single-handedly, but we need to make sure we can move the ball down the field and make sure that we can at least stop the bleeding from this administration and work on reversing it. And I think in the here and now, Trump's the best option. As for 28 and 32 and how the Overton window shifts, I think there's a lot of things that need to be done. So is Trump going to save it himself? Probably not, but he definitely needs to at least start moving the ball down the field, and I think that he will. Am says, when will Trump abolish DACA and Dreamers? I have no idea. DACA is something that is probably not going to be high priority for Trump, even immigration-wise, because you have, a couple 100,000 people here, and that's like the least priority of deportation. Whereas you have 30 million people that need to be deported right now that are not being deported by this administration. Let's take care of them first, and then we could deal with DACA. Just no path to citizenship would be ideal. But we do have a lot of other priorities with immigration that Trump probably is going to tackle first. So I don't even know if he's going to get around to it or if he'll even have time, to be honest. Tucson PaleoCon for 20 says, when can we expect a VP pick, do you think? Well, Trump said at the convention, I think it'll be, I don't know, maybe he'll send it from the courtroom when he's being sentenced. Who knows when it's going to happen? But it's definitely going to be close to the convention. Trains 29 says, I have concerns we're falling into the 2022 trap with everyone overestimating the GOP's chances. Well, I'm not. For the record, I'm not falling into that trap. I don't think that it's going to be as big of a cakewalk as some people might think it is. I will say that the problem with that is that 2022 was a midterm year, and the polls, if you want to look at the polls right now in all those states, they had the Democrats winning by even more than they did. It wasn't even until October when Republicans started to be overestimated. So like I said, I think that there's too many factors at play. Fuller turnout, election. I don't think you can compare the two. Polling errors rarely carry over from election cycle to election cycle, especially if the election cycle is a midterm year. Carter W. says, what do you think Trump's debate strategy will be? I have no idea. That's up to him. That's up to him to decide, but hopefully know the facts and make sure that you can let Biden talk a lot. Don't interrupt. So Biden trips over himself. So you kind of just get some inadvertent victories in that department. Thomas Willingham says Trump will be pushing Don Jr. for 28. Aren't you afraid of the extremes the establishment will go to get rid of Trump? I don't know if Trump will be pushing for Don Jr. Don Jr. might run for political office. I don't think he's going to be the one to, in 28, Trump, he's going to hand the reins over to his son. I don't think that that's necessarily the most likely course of action. I think Don Jr. might run again. He might run for president in the future, but it's probably going to be sometime in the 2030s, more so than right now. I think right now, if anything, he'd run for, or in 2028, maybe senator of Pennsylvania. Maybe try to knock off Fetterman if Fetterman loses popularity again, which who knows? Maybe he'll lose a primary at this point. DH says, does Trump even have the power to deport illegal aliens without congressional approval? Because if so, why does he keep saying he's going to do it? Well, he has the power. The courts are going to try to strike him down, but it doesn't matter. Immigration is solely controlled by the executive, because that's even how Biden opened the border, was because of executive power. This is going to be no different. You have a national emergency. Nobody's going to vote against that now because we literally have a national emergency. So we need to make sure that we get it done. Let's see. I think we're done for Super Chats for the night, but we've gone on for over an hour. I think I will be ending the show, but I'll be back with a video on probably Tuesday. I'll probably do a live stream, not this Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. That's when I'll be with you guys next. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching the stream. But before you guys go, like the stream down below, comment on the replay if you're watching on a replay, but subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, follow me on social media. The links are all in the description down below, and I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle, out.